Okay, so we've definitely learned in the past. The question is just when. I think in 2021. Um, but it's close to home as well. This was a talk the Rebbe gave um, right after my father and some of his friends were in a very big, very severe car crash upstate New York, and 1969. I think it was
Yeah.
then. 1969, yeah. So, if we have time, the Rebbe talks a bit about the idea of a fire. It was a very big fire, and those who know my father knows that he was in a big accident. Baruch Hashem, he made it through right before his wedding, and Larichas Yam Shem Tavis, for many more years here with us healthy. Okay, so
Hi,
this
Tom. You have a name?
is this is many years ago. It's 1969, Baruch.
Oh,
1969. This is a talk that Rebbe gave around the time of right after that accident. Okay, so this is I think it was a Thursday night. So this is Shabbos Parshas Chukas Balak Yud-Beis Tammuz. So like this week, which the parshas to get two parshas together for Chutzlards, which are Chukas and Balak. And it was the 12th of Tammuz, which is also this week. This week is the 12th of Tammuz. Then it was 1969. Now it's 2026. So we're going into the 100th year, entering the 100th year of the story of Yud-Beis Tammuz. And again, of course, Yud-Beis Tammuz is the birthday of the Frierdiker Rebbe as well. So the Rebbe starts the Farbrengen Tziva Lenagein. He asked that they sing, which means to sing the Maimer Nigun. There was a special song that was sung before the Rebbe said a Hasidic discourse. And the Rebbe said the Maimer on the verse of Zois Chukas HaTorah, later to be edited by the Rebbe. Okay. So the first Sicha over here is going to be cryptic a bit because this is what they do in the publication of Torah's Menachem when there's a talk that is later to be edited in part of the Likutei Sichos. So they'll just give bulletin points of what the Rebbe spoke about, and for more information, one should look at the edited version of this talk, the specific talk within this Farbrengen, which we'll see in a second. So the Rebbe says, Abir b'maimer ha-medrash. The Rebbe discusses the medrash that says, Amalei Kadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. Hashem says to Moshe. Now, when does Hashem say this to Moshe? La'achri she'elasei b'negei letumas meis. After Moshe asks about the severity and how could one purify themselves from something as impure as the impurity of death, I mean, someone who comes in contact with death, how does a person purify themselves from that? His face turned colors, green, from fright or almost helpless, of feeling that there's no way. Once Moshe understood the severity of tumas meis, there's no way for a person to become pure from such an impurity. Now, it's not just the physical contact of death, but of course, there's also the concept of spiritual death. Hainu she'inin hachuka, and that's why it's called a chayk. A chayk is a kind of mitzvah that has no understanding. We don't understand how it works. Hu anakuda klal shekol tarikula. And the idea is that the Parsha says, Zois Chukas HaTorah, that the whole Torah is not based on rhyme and reason, that the essence of Torah is a chayk, that it's this is the way God decided it to be. Sorry, I skipped a line. So God answered him, Lachani megala tam para. That God tells Moshe, I'm going to tell you the reason of the paraduma. So you'll understand how it works. The Rebbe asked the question, if paraduma is a chayk, meaning it's something that's beyond our understanding, the bottom line, the essence of everything in Torah is that it's a chayk, it's something that's not understood. And therefore, it's required upon ourselves that when we approach Torah, it has to be Yagiyah Torah. You have to toil in Torah. Why? Because Torah is not something that's meant to be given easily. You have to work on the toil to get to the chok of Torah, to get to the essence of Torah. Through toiling, a person could reach a level of Torah, engage in the level of Torah that's beyond comprehension. Torah has many stages and levels in it. Torah, a person is supposed to use their hasaga, their comprehension, to the highest level. Then you have to reach beyond that, the idea of the Torah that's beyond hasaga, beyond comprehension. So if God is telling Moshe, he's giving him an easy way, he doesn't have to do toiling in Torah. He's revealing it to him. He's lacking this commitment to Torah beyond logic. Because when Moshe gets complicated, God says, I'm going to reveal you something that no one else understands. Even Shlomo Melech, the wisest of all men, don't know this. So he's lacking, and the Rebbe calls it the Mesiras Nefesh of Torah. Why is it called Mesiras Nefesh of Torah? Because a person logically works through logic. I mean, a person typically works through logic. Mesiras Nefesh gives you even giving away your connection to something that requires usually logic. I don't do something if I don't understand. So you're giving away what you want, even something how you would usually respond to something. That's Mesiras Nefesh to Torah. V'shleimus ha'yigi Torah, and what does it mean to really toil in Torah? Again, there's a lot of footnotes over here where the Rebbe talks about ideas, but again, for everyone to learn on their own time if they can. We know that there's an idea that it says that four things come be'esach hadas. Esach hadas means when you're least expecting it, when you're not paying attention, right? One of the things is a mitzia, a lost item. When do you find something lost? When you least expect to find it. When you're looking for something, you can never find it, and then when you're not paying attention, you find it. Why? Because something that's a mitzia, something that's beyond your it's not something that you own. It's mitzvah, it's a gift. It's something that it's a lost item. It's something that wasn't. It could have been lost forever. It could be. It would never be found to you. It doesn't have to mean just something. A mitzvah is not just something that you lost. Something's been lost to anyone. Like you find something on the street that is ownerless. So it comes when you least expect it. Why? Because it's deeper than understanding. Shatam Parish is Gala Moshe anytime sichli. So the Rebbe answers the question: then why was Moshe revealed? The idea of Torah, the idea of paradum, the idea of the red heifer. If a person's supposed to toil, and the red heifer represents the concept of toiling of Torah, the point is that God didn't give him the logic of Torah, of paraduma. He didn't give him the tam sichli, the logical answer. That God brought Moshe into the space of the infinite, that it became part of him. Just like a person sometimes knows something, you can't articulate it, but you could almost replicate it to give someone like, let me take you to this story or to this happening. So, because I can't tell it to you in words, no words are going to describe it because it's not something that you can understand. But if I take you there, you'll have that knowledge of it, even though you don't understand it. And that's what God took Moshe to the space beyond knowledge, to the essence of God, where things are the way they are, the pshitas, the simplicity of it. Again, for more information, this is an edited Sicha. The idea of true chachma connects to the true want. Atik is like the want. Want doesn't have reason either. If a person has a desire in something, you don't have to give a reason why you desire to have a piece of pizza. If you had to answer every time you had a desire for something, you would go nuts, right? You can't explain it, you can't articulate it, because at the end of the day, there's no real reason. Therefore, it wasn't lacking by Moshe. It wasn't like he got better understanding. He got to the place of that's the way it is. He got to the place of just like by God, the simplicity, this is the way it is. He got to that level. But he still has to toil to try to understand it. Why is it this way? Moshe was able to reach the level when he gets so close. That's not that you're giving yourself over to another idea. You are part of the idea. You're so connected to the essence that you nullify yourself within the idea itself. And the rest of this talk is edited by the Rebbe and printed in the Sicha chapter, volume 18, page 229 and further. Okay. The Rebbe wants to add. There's an idea that was explained in that year. That year, 1969, the Rebbe was celebrating entering the 90th birthday of the Frierdiker Rebbe, his father-in-law. Again, the Frierdiker Rebbe, his birthday is on the 12th of Tammuz. So the Rebbe was celebrating, although he passed away before he turned 70, but he was celebrating his entering into the 90th year. So the 90th chapter in Tehillim, we say the chapter of Tehillim corresponding to a person's birthday, is Tefillah LaMoshe. And we know of prayers, right? We learned to Sicha about this recently, I think this year. The difference between Tefillah LaMoshe and Tefillah La'ani, that Tefillah LaMoshe is the rich man's prayer, and Tefillah La'ani is the poor man's prayer. That's the prayer of David. It says, Anechi Ani ve'avian. So there the Rebbe, in this talk, the Rebbe is emphasizing the prayer of Moshe. Tefillah LaMoshe, Tefillah Sasha. Moshe's prayer is the prayer of the rich person. Even though it's seeming to say that this is an idea that Moshe is a prayer of the rich man. The Chorin movement seemingly is not understood. again, there's a rule the Rebbe always says. When we talk about, for instance, in the law of machzis and shekel, half shekel, it says the rich man shouldn't give more, the poor man shouldn't give less. We're not talking about rich and poor in a separate thing. Meaning to say, like for instance, if I'm a person who's very rich in money, but if God forbid I don't have something else, so I'm not rich in that thing that I don't have. If someone, God forbid, needs children, right? So you could be rich in one thing, but you're poor in something else. You could be rich in talents. You could be rich in happiness. This rich and poor. It's not just one a title of about a person. Many people could be rich in certain things and be very poor in other things. Knowledge, time, kindness. Right. So the if Moshe Rabbeinu is a rich person, and we're talking about the subject at hand. So what does it mean to have a prayer for the rich person? If he's praying, he's not rich in that subject because he needs something. If you need something, you're not rich. You're rich means you're not lacking anything. If he's wealthy, there's no lack. Why is he praying? This is not a question only the Rebbe asks. It's brought down the Medrash. So and even though there's an explanation that says, you're right, Moshe is not lacking anything. He's crying, he's praying for others. Like it says, Medina Chareva, we learned this a few weeks ago, that there's a country of yours that's destroyed. Please, I'm praying on their behalf, go build it. He's praying for the Jewish people that are not Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu personally is rich. Moshe Rabbeinu is full, has everything he needs. But what about the Jewish people? His people, his flock, they're lacking. So Ein Zeh Tefillah Shlo, it's not really his prayer. But the Rebbe says you can't say that because then it's not Tefillah LaMoshe, it's not Moshe's prayer. It's a prayer Moshe's doing on someone else's behalf. But when you say Tefillah LaMoshe, means it's a prayer for Moshe. What's the word Tefillah mean? It's not really translated as the root of the word Tefillah is from the word Naftuli, Niftalti, which is like a Teufel Klicheres, to connect, to reconnect something. A Teufel Klicheres is talking about the laws of like a person wants to paste together or glue together a broken pottery, right? Everyone's dropped a piece of pottery on the floor, and if they're big enough pieces, you glue it together. That's the word a teifel klicheres. You put together a earthenware that's fallen apart. That's what tefillah is, to put together. But you're putting yourself together with God. You connect yourself to who you're seeking from something. And in this case, Moshe is praying to God. Ve'elov mispalan, to the person you're praying to the entity you're praying to. Here he's praying to God. Then it's your prayer. You're connecting. You can't connect something. You're connecting. The tefillah is the teifel klicheres. You're connecting yourself to Hashem. So how's Moshe connecting himself for something that he doesn't lack? The Rebbe asks even more. There's a story of the Friedrich that the Friedrich Rebbe tells again, the Balak of Yud-Beis Tammuz, the one who's celebrating his redemption and his birthday of the 12th of Tammuz. We see that when a Rebbe tells a story, they're not just telling a story of once upon a time. When a Rebbe tells a story, you can learn many things from it, even up to certain laws. It's a famous story. A person walked in, the Rebbe told the story. We tell the story usually in a cryptic way because it's not a pleasant story. Where a person once walked into the Mittel Rebbe. The Mittel Rebbe is the second Rebbe, the son of the Alter Rebbe Dovber. Ubikish tikun, he asked for a fixing. Al inin kazeh, that something was so low. The person did something so low. Sha'admer amtsai lo yoye yoichel. Limen say ba'atzmer fil b'dakas dakas. We know the rule is that when you come to a tzaddik and you ask a tzaddik for a tikkun, the tzaddik can't be abstract from the idea. He's not hearing something that you did that has nothing to do with him or to her if you're going to a righteous woman. Why? Because how could you connect to someone's issue if it's nothing to do with you? So you have to feel not just the pain of the person's sin. You have to find the sin within yourself, something that you could connect, understand that you actually find within yourself something that you need to fix. That's connected to the person that you're trying to fix. And in this case, it was such a sin that the Rebbe couldn't find any way to connect it. So what the Rebbe is proving from the story is that Moshe Rabbeinu is himself connecting. You can't pray for someone if it has nothing to do with you. We're talking about a person who was from the grave, from the Chevra Kadisha, the people who were from the, I don't call them Chevra Kadisha, the people who dealt with the people after death, and he had relations with the corpse. I mean, something like that. How could the Rebbe be connected to something like that? He couldn't answer. It's a similar story to Tzemach Tzedek. And the answer at the end is the Mittel Rebbe did find something to connect it, and then he came back in and gave him a tikkun. The L'chura in the movement seemingly is not understood. He should have just answered in a way that has nothing to do with him. Moshe is rich, he's crying about someone else's pain. This person comes to the Mitzvah Rebbe, he did a horrible sin. The Mitzvah Rebbe can answer him because he has nothing to do with him. But that point is it does have to do with him. Even though he doesn't lack anything, he's helping someone else. He's trying to find a tikkun for someone else. From this we see you can't pray for someone else if you're not finding something within yourself with the issue at hand. So it has to be at Moshe himself. So if it's at Moshe himself, he's not an usher. He's not rich. He's lacking something. The question is, what does it mean that Moshe is praying? If it's a prayer for the rich person who's rich, again, we're not talking about you're rich in one subject, because then that's not what we're talking about. If a person says, I need to have children, I have no children, but I have a lot of money. Makesher, what's the difference? We're not talking about your money, we're talking about your need for children. But the idea is like this. Even when Moshe prays for a destroyed city, for a destroyed soul, for a destroyed person, Azut feels Sasha is still the prayer of the rich person. Why? The idea is when you connect to something that's the essence, and like we said before, Moshe gets brought up through the paraduma. God brought Moshe into the level of essence. The essence is always the essence. Essence is always essential. And therefore, even if the essence is seemingly in a situation that could connect to someone's pain, and it finds it within himself, it's still the essence. And the idea of Tfilas Ashir, which is amazing, a description of Ashiris is, if you look at Ashiris as accumulated something, you accumulated money, or you accumulated knowledge, you accumulated talent or love, whatever it is that you're rich with, right? So you've seemingly accumulated something separate from you. And it wasn't even a sure thing that you would get it. But when your richness is from essence, and essence is that everything, God is the essence of every existence. So it's not an accumulated wealth. It's an essential wealth. And therefore essential wealth could be essence, nevertheless be connected to the pain and to something that's lacking. He explains that it's a difficult concept. You could talk about this a long time. So Rebbe says, when you get to the essence of the God's desire, which is almost the highest description that we could understand of God, it's still the essence. The essence is not lacking. The essence of God is not lacking anything. That you have to add to it. It's not accumulative. True wealth is essential wealth. Because God's the essence. We can find this also in levels within godliness. Like it says, in the question, it says that the low light cries up to the high light and never stops crying because it always has a desire to get to the higher light. The lower light is also godliness. And if it's godliness, why is it crying and why is it lacking? Because it means the wealth is in the essence. But the essence itself could be in a situation that it wants more, even though it's essence. Again, this whole idea is deeper than what we can understand, but there's a point that Rebbe is trying to make. The point that Rebbe is trying to make is in the next paragraph, and that is the idea of how do we deal with suffering, and how do we deal with, because what is suffering by definition? Right? Suffering by definition is a horrible situation of lacking, right? You're suffering; it's not a good situation, but we have the halacha. We can find the same idea in every person. This idea that you could have a tefillah be an ashir means you're in essence. Every Jew is a part of God, but nevertheless, there's a tefillah. There's something that there's a chasarn. There's something lacking, and the point is never to forget that you're an ashir. Never to forget that the essence that you are an essence, part of an essence of God. The Rebbe starts. Our rabbis have taught us. Chayev levarech al hara kashem shevarach hatov. A person has to be shavius. It has to be equality. You have to be totally the same. Just like you bless God on the good, you have to bless God on the bad, just like you bless God on the good. Famous story. They asked Rebbe Zusha, they asked the Maggid, how could you expect that from someone? The person has to be just as thankful for the bad as one is for the good? So he said, go to Zusha, Anapali. Zusha said, nothing bad ever happened to me. Why? Because as in essence, he was so equal to him. Everything in life, whatever was coming at him was equal. So it says, what does it mean? You have to take it with joy. The Rebbe says, yes. A person starts off, you have to work on yourself. You have to be self-sacrifice. Skafi means to restrain yourself. The idea is, it means the equality is, what is a skafia? A skafia, by definition, in avoda, or Mesiras Nefesh also is the concept of chisaron. A skafia means you're struggling with something. And when you're struggling within something in avoda, that's a skafia. You have to restrain yourself. Restraining yourself means it's not a sure thing that you can do what's right. So seemingly that's something that's negative. But even that itself has to come from happiness. Why? Because it's all part of you're an usher. An usher is oisha from the word oisher, happiness. After the chura is estira. How can I be happy if I'm struggling with something? If you're happy, also and he says the opposite. If you're happy, it's not a struggle. Right? If a person's happy to do something, you're not struggling. Struggling is usually you're not. It's by definition you're not. So he says, what's the idea of skaf? You have to break yourself. If you're happy, you're not breaking yourself. Hazy. Moshe Rabbeinu first also was struggling, but then God said, I'm going to reveal it to you. Once he reveals it to you, there's another struggle. Even if a person works on themselves, you don't like to exercise, but after a while it becomes part of your routine, so you're okay with it. Look at Pirsh Mamrazal. I'll say that what we find that even though you have things that are difficult, but when you push yourself and that becomes part of who you are, you're able to start finding simcha in that. Like the Rebbe says, make your will like God's will. What does it mean, make your will or nullify your will to God's will? That though it's God's will and it could be hard and it's challenging, but you're pushing yourself. Like Moshe, who started off, it was difficult and he got to some sort of clarity. So too a person has to find simcha even in the difficult situations. And that's the idea of oisher, of wealth, even in things that are seemingly lacking, that are difficult. Is why? Because when you're connected to the essence, when it's part of who you are, I'm not sure this idea was put down to writing as good as it could have been. But the idea is that when wealth is, again, when you're essentially wealthy, if your wealth is defined by accumulative wealth, so if you don't have, then you're not happy. You don't have the wealth. But if you're essentially wealthy, so it's not a contradiction to having difficulties. This idea that a person has to always be happy. We know this from what the Friedrich Rebbe himself said about the very difficult time he went through in the 12th of Tammuz. The whole difficulty he went through in the imprisonment. The Friedrich Rebbe says an amazing thing. He suffered all the suffering. He was put into horrible physical torture for the time that he was in prison. We're talking about only the way the Russians know how to torture someone, right? And he says he took upon himself the torture. Everyone else had everyone else had the simcha. Everyone else, Yud-Beis Tammuz is a great time simcha. But the difficulties the Friedrich Rebbe went through. How does a person find true redemption, inner redemption, personal redemption? Is to find that inner wealth, the inner oisher, happiness, the essential happiness and the wealth that you have within yourself. And again, it's not a contradiction to difficulties. We go standing up straight to our land, the Holy Land, with the coming of Mashiach. The Rebbe continues, this that we said before, this mashkas medrash tefillin about the medrash that says tefillin Moshe. It's connected to Yud-Beis Tammuz, which is also the birthday of the Friedrich Rebbe. Based on the custom, we know the custom is that one says the chapter of Tehillim according to your birthday. So if you are 50, you say chapter 51 because you're going into the 51st year. Yud-Beis Tammuz, the Shana Zu, this year 1969. Mistaim in Peita Shana, the Friedrich Rebbe would have turned 89, which means he's going into his 90th year. We enter the 90th year. And Moshe's prayer is Tefillah Moshe, the rich man's prayer, is the capital, is chapter 90. The Rebbe says in the brackets, one is going to ask the question, what do you mean on 1969? Previous Rebbe has already been passed away almost 19 years. So what does it mean to celebrate his birthday and to say his chapter? So we know by Chassidim, especially by tzaddikim, we continue to say the chapter even after a tzaddik passes away, because the tzaddik is living, has chaim nitzchim, has everlasting life, maybe not in the physical body, but he's with his chassidim, and every year he's getting stronger. Like the Rebbe says many times, one continues to say a chapter Tillim even after the passing of a tzaddik, and goes every year to a new chapter as the tzaddik would get older. Even though the tzaddik passed away, the Nazi passed away, doesn't have the physical happenings like we have in this world. Surely not this coarse world. A shepherd never leaves his flock. On the contrary, and now there's no limitations, so the tzaddik has more opportunity to be with his or her flock. It's even easier to be connected to the tzaddik, as it's brought down in the Geras HaKodesh, letter 27, which deals with the question of passing of a tzaddik. So surely that we could say that this year, meaning 1969, was the Frierdiker Rebbe's entering into his 90th birthday. Also, the Rebbe brings down this from the Rishima, from the notes of the Baal Simcha V'Geula, from the one who's celebrating his redemption, meaning the Frierdiker Rebbe. Many years after his father passed away, meaning the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab, the Frierdiker Rebbe, had a vision of his father on his father's birthday, saying a discourse of Chassidus on the capital, on the part of the Tehillim that would be for his birthday at that time, even though he was after his death. Okay, so the Rebbe, that's a sign note. The Rebbe wants to connect the idea of Tefillah L'Moshe, the rich man's prayer, the oisher, the solidness, with this week's parsha. There's a connection between the idea of the tefillah of Moshe, the rich man's prayer, with our second parsha, which is Balak. B'negei Parshas Balak, when it comes to with regard to Parshas Balak, mivur b'maimer, the Rebbe explained, the Parshas Balak, mishnas tafresh chestes, it's brought down in a discourse, I believe, of the Rebbe Marash, 100 years before, which would be 1869. Shebalak ubilam, it's brought down that the two main Rishoyim, wicked people in the second parsha, are Balak, the king of Moab, and Bilam, who we all know is our relative. He's a son of Lavan, as brought down the Gemara. Those two people are the main characters of Parshas Balak, right? So Balak and Bilam, heim bechinas zel umazeh, the klipa shekeneged Moshe v'Aaron. Moshe and Aaron are two giants of holiness, but everything in holiness has to have a counter in impurity. That's the rule. Every single existence in the world of holiness has to have something that counters it in some things that are unholy. Who counters Moshe and Aaron? Balak and Bilam. Balak and Bilam are connected, are corresponding to Moshe and Aaron. We know this tradition goes old times. He said that the Alter Rebbe once said that there was a horrible priest in the time of the Baal Shem Tov. And there was some people say Franz Joseph in the times of the Maggid, the Alter Rebbe. There was different people, Napoleon in the time of the Alter Rebbe. There always has to be Kedusha counted. The only thing it says Babu de Babu Leslo is the Yechida, the oneness. From the oneness, there's no counter to the essence of the soul. But in how things are expressed, there are levels. And Moshe and Aaron, what's contrary to Moshe and Aaron in impurity is Balak and Bilam. Why? Bilam hu amenagid. Bilam is the enemy, the klipa from the places of impurity, which that fight Moshe specifically. How do we know this? Maimer Zal, we have a famous Rashi that brings that from our rabbis that's brought down at the end of the Torah. That it says at the end of the Torah means the end of Devarim, the end of Zosa Bracha, before Moshe's passing or after Moshe's passing. There will never be a prophet like Moshe. Torah testifies there will never be a prophet like Moshe. The Rambam puts us into the principles. B'Yisrael loikam, but the Rashi says yes. In Israel, by the Jewish people, there'll never be a prophet like Moshe. Come, but by the nations there's going to be someone like Moshe. Some people say even greater than Moshe. Who's that? Bilam. So Bilam counters Moshe. Balak haya bechinas menaged neged Aaron. Balak had an issue with things that are corresponding to Aaron HaKohen, the high priest. Why? He Balak bal loluk damin Yisrael. It's brought down. He wants to laluka is a what do they call it? A bloodsucker, right? So a leech. So Balak wanted to leech the blood off the Jewish people. Pirish daman. What does it mean? The blood. What did he want? What do you have? What's he have issue with the blood of the Jewish people? Pirish daman hanu toik from b'chazakim. What is blood? Blood represents the strength of the Jewish people, right? We see that till today. Why did all of a sudden the Pandora's box of anti-Semitism explode open? When Jewish people are strong, people don't like that. That's toikif, the chayzik of the Jewish people, right? Balak also didn't like the Jews marching through the desert strong. And specifically, not strong and just in airplanes and intelligence, but our strength. They strengthen themselves. That they work on themselves, to have a yearning and a want to be included in godliness. He couldn't stand that. How do we express that? When we sprayed the blood in the sacrifices to show that we're giving our blood to God. He says, no. What are you giving your blood to God for? He doesn't want us to have a desire for God. He makes his own mizbeach. He makes his own altars and sacrifices. Go put your blood and your passion to worldly things. And that's contrary to Aaron HaKohen. Why? Aaron represents the bride, the Jewish people. Like we learned many times in the Maimorim of Balak and Chanukah. Aaron HaKohen lifts up the Jewish people's soul towards God. Balos chesaneres. Comes Balak and says, what are you talking about? What's this excitement? What's this menorah to God? You want to be excited? Go be excited about your golf course, about your new job, or your new who knows what. And therefore it says about the prayer of Moshe. The Medrash says that God only wants for Moshe. And he quotes the verse that Zevach Rishayim, a sacrifice of the wicked, right? Balak makes sacrifices. Bilam makes sacrifices. Is Toyevas Hashem, is an abomination to God. The rest of this talk is strong. I'm warning everyone. Zeo Bilam Balak. Well, who's the wicked that their sacrifice is an abomination? We're referring to Balak and Bilam. When Bilam tells Balak, Binali Bezeh Shiva Mizbechais. Bilam tells Balak, you want me to curse, you want me to draw energy, right? What is he asking Bilam to do? To draw energy from holiness, because he knows that he's a prophet of God. So he says, build altars. God's watching and he says, Rasha, wicked one. You want me to take your sacrifice? Bitmiya? Question mark. They're an abomination to me. A sacrifice of the wicked of Balak and Bilam is an abomination to God. I really want. I like the prayer of the righteous. The prayer of Moshe. That's the Medrash. The idea is like this. Here the Rebbe says strong words. When a Yid sees the nations in the world dancing in the sanctuary, that's an expression of the Gentiles celebrating the destruction of the temple. Right? Why is it bothering everyone if we talk about the temple? So that's Umas Ha'olam Meraktim Beheichel. The nations are dancing in the sanctuary. V'yesh lehem hatzlacha. And you look around and they're being successful at it too. Koil gam hatzlacha v'ruchnis. And sometimes you see not just success physically, materially. You sometimes see spiritual success. Bilam was spiritually successful. Well, Dugma, the Rebbe gives an example. Yehudi Heilich Berchayv. V'ray professor, Shatari Saimcha Lov Negel, Kuch Rav Shvim Kippurim. Science. Sometimes even Yom Kippur is dependent on science. The doctor has to say if the person can fast or not. And what do you say? Why do you have to come on to the professor? Because he went to college, you didn't. You don't know the answer. If the person has to fast on Yom Kippur or not. V'kivan Shemaim, I'm not sure the Rebbe is talking about something there. V'kivan Shemaim and Shekol Dav Ruba Shkach Pratis, and a person's a believer. and knows that everything's by divine. God decided it to be so. God agreed that they should have the power, even Beruchnius, the Merakid Behechel, the dancing on the sanctuary, and they have success both spiritually and materially. That's a great, and not only that's a great strength. The fact that something so powerful could give life and to even koyach hatuma, to impurity, means where it's coming from. We know the rule: the higher something is, the lower it could fall. So the Rebbe is saying, what's the effect? The Jew may say, I have to give credence to this. I have to be misparel. I have to be overwhelmed with this. Wow. I have to be wowed. Look at this. Even they could dance in the sanctuary. They have some sort of power. We find this even by Moshe. Moshe was terrified of Paro. He's called the great serpent. Meaning he had strength, impure strength. That's why God had to say, Boy al Pari, I'll come with you. But Moshe was scared to go to Paro himself. He wasn't physically scared of Paro. He was spiritually scared of Paro. A Jew may think and say, I have to be overwhelmed, I have to be frightful of the nations. They could dance in the sanctuary. They tell me what to do. I have to move soldiers away and risk the lives of people in the north because someone said so. And therefore you have to know that the sacrifices of the wicked is an abomination to God. It doesn't change the fact that it's a sacrifice. We're not saying it's not a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice. He built the 7 mizbeches. He built the 7 altars. On the contrary, though it's an abomination, it still has the power of an altar. There's power here. There's no one saying it's a myth. And it's brought down that who made these altars? Bilam and Balak, Mavur Bakabala, Oidis Akavanis, Shekivim Bilam, Kedela Hamshachas and Yanim Shiratalipo Adekar Barnasam. And these people knew what they were doing. They built altars in a way that it's brought down in Kabbalah, that he knew how to manipulate the powers, and he thought he would be able to manipulate the powers to be effective in cursing the Jewish people and bringing destruction to the Jewish people. He was even able to do prophecy. He prophesied in the whole parsha. The whole parsha is full of prophecy. Even though he couldn't stand because he was a person who wasn't circumcised. He had clarity. Like it says, Vayakar likim al bilam. Even though it doesn't say Vayikra, it says Vayakar, a derogatory term, but doesn't change the fact. What the Rebbe is saying is that it's not, what we're saying over here is that sometimes there's 2 ways that a person deals with an issue. One way you deal with an issue is to say it's not true. It's nothing. Or another way to say it is, even if it is something, that doesn't change the fact. It means if a person, the risk of saying something is nothing, because it is something. Bilam builds a mizbeah. He has prophecy. He can manipulate the powers of Kabbalah says. But you still don't care. That's the point. Because when you say it's nothing, and it really is something, so then that's a bad argument. So if you say, who cares? It's nothing. It is something. But even if it is something, who cares? It doesn't have to be nothing for me to and if it's something, all of a sudden I'm going to change myself. I know one thing. I have Moshe Rabbeinu. I have Torah's Moshe. I know what the Torah says. I know what God told me to do. That's what I have to pay attention to. And it doesn't make a difference if it's something or not. Bilam was the prophecies weren't any kind of prophecies. They were the prophecies that like the Rambam quotes, the source of Mashiach comes from this week's parsha. He prophesies about the greatest of all times, the times of Mashiach. Dorach koyechev miyakov, a star will shoot from Jacob, become shevet Yisrael, the tribe of Judah. All these prophecies. So a person may say, what do you mean? It's obviously something. If it's something, then I have to be overwhelmed. Maybe the Gentile is going to tell me how I'm supposed to be a Jew. The Torah tells you how you're supposed to be a Jew. It still doesn't change the fact. It's something, but it's still an abomination to God. But what do I want? What does God want? The prayer of the righteous. Tefillah l'Moshe. We find that in the beginning of creation, God saw everything. He saw the acts of the Masayim, the acts of the righteous and the acts of the wicked. Like it says, the world was chaotic. What does it mean chaotic? These are the actions of the wicked. And we're not just talking about the negative actions. We're talking about even building the mizbeach of the wicked. And then God says, let there be light. These are the actions of the tzaddikim. And at the point of creation, we don't know which way God's going to go. Why? Because God is pshitas. You can't bribe. God is beyond being affected. But the bottom line was he wants the actions of the good, of the righteous. He has no desire in the actions of the wicked. When the Rebbe says, what's the bottom line that we're talking about? Again, this is, you have to remember, we're talking about 1969, between the 6-Day War and the Yom Kippur War. Although we're in exile, and the land, the law of the land is the law. Like it says, we have a verse to support that. Dirshu as shalim ha'ir. Pray for this, for the safety of the city. Asher gilisi eschem sham, that I'm exiling you to that place. Vispala ba'ada. Pray for the country that hosts you. But you have to know, at the end of the day, everything comes from God. Why is the rule, the law and Torah, that says the law of the country is the law? Because God decided to, and God is the way the things work in the kingdom of heaven, so too things work in the kingdom of the earth. God decides who's king and president of the world. God has royalty. If that's the case, if it's a question about Judaism, what does a Yid do? What does a Jew do when it comes to Torah mitzvahs? No one, the nations are not going to tell you what you have to do when it comes to your performance or the way Torah mitzvahs have to be performed. And you're not going to be overwhelmed by that. There's mizbeach, and there's power even of kedusha, of manipulation through klipa. The rule is that when do we say the law of the land is the law? Is only when it doesn't affect. What does it mean you don't have a wolf anymore? I don't get that. We'll get back to the second, Julie. It says, you're mute. He says, when does it say the law of the land is the law? When it doesn't affect your Judaism, like the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe, when the communists took over, he could have said, okay, they said you can't open up a mikveh. You can't teach school. No, I mean, that's nice and good. The law of the land is the law, but not if it's going to affect Jewish education. You don't get overwhelmed. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe said, only our bodies are in exile. No one has rule over our souls. When it comes to the question, their souls and godliness, we don't have to be overwhelmed by the nations. And don't get overwhelmed by their strength. It's not even if they're only strong in physically, but even if their strength is ruchnius, spiritual. This is the bottom line. This power that it's given is only like someone who throws something over the shoulder. Like the back of the neck, it's only external. It's not even like the forehead. It's not even though the forehead is not like the eyes and the ears. But it's still part of the front of the face. That's why we say metzach, netzach. Perseverance comes from the forehead. The point is, it's part of the desire. Even if something seems that doesn't have the level of eyes, but it's still part of the focus. It's not the throwing something over the back. Even not even the back of the neck, but the shoulders, which are lower than the back of the neck. The Rebbe says we don't get overwhelmed. We have to be strong. And if Torah says something, whether it's a question of pekuch nefesh about Eretz Yisrael, whether it's about our performance of Torah mitzvahs, whether it's about Jewish education, New York City is fighting with trying to change Jewish education, that we're not in a spoil. We don't have to get overwhelmed. The Frierdiker Rebbe went to prison for that. He was almost shot for that. When a person is not fearful, stays strong and knows that tefillah Moshe, God wants the prayer of Moshe. You don't get overwhelmed by this. If that itself breaks the strength. That's what happened on the 12th of Tammuz. It broke the strength of the communist. And this will bring to the promise of the prophet that the kings will be with you, like it's brought down with the times of Mashiach. I just want to see something. small about what the Rebbe spoke about after my father's fire. The Rebbe has another whole talk over here, a beautiful talk. So I think if we go further down, so it's a nice talk. We should have learned it maybe. Let's see if we have it here, if I could find it. Yep, it's not here. I thought I saw it somewhere about the fire. I know it's here somewhere. I just have to see a second. Give me 1 second, guys. If not, Julie, while I'm trying to find it, what do you mean you're not a wolf? You're on mute.
Okay. I was trying to
I,
reply to somebody else about a dog, so
Oh,
that didn't mean to go to everybody. I
oh,
apologize. That
I
probably
did
sounded
not
very
know about
strange in front of everybody out of
okay.
a serious
No,
conversation, and I don't have a wolf, so
no. It's
it's
not a
good for
problem. Okay.
dogs and animals.
I didn't know
Sorry.
that I could go to you, man. I didn't know that you could have read that.
I I should have hit the reply to you. That's, hey, that keeps things light sometimes, right? I just say
No,
something,
absolutely no
but that
problem.
means dog, so yeah.
Okay, everyone. Well, I can't find it, so I guess maybe it's in another talk that I didn't. Maybe it's Yud-Beis Tammuz actually. All right, everyone. Laila Tov, good Shabbos, and meaningful Yud-Beis Tammuz. Take care. Thank you for joining.
Good Shabbos. Thanks, Rabbi.
Welcome.